everyone, it's Lesley Oman here from Hungry Happy Crafts, and I am sharing with you guys today a technique, a no-line watercoloring technique, but instead of using watercolors, I am using my distress inks. And I've used this really cute little bunny from Gerda Steiner Designs, and I've paired that up with a greeting from a Mama Elephant Honey Bunny stamp set. And I decided to use a background die from Lawn Fawn because, well, it was new in my stash and I couldn't wait to use it, to be honest. So I picked out this really cute, happy looking bunny, and I'm going to stamp that onto some plain white cardstock using some distress ink. This is the Antique Linen Distress Ink colour. And I've stamped it once at the top, and then the second impression down below is really light. It's called second generation stamping because you don't ink up your stamp again. I want it to be really, really light. Then I'm taking an old piece of packaging. You can of course just use a piece of white cardstock with some acetate on top, but I had this to hand, so I used this and I smooshed my ink pads on top of it to create a bit of a temporary palette. I'm using some brown tones. I've got tea dye, walnut stain, and vintage photo, and also some worn lipstick. And I'm using just a cheap water brush to colour in this image. I'm starting off with my lighter brown, the tea dye. And because my water brush has water in it, I can control how dark and how light, how saturated and how diluted my ink will be. You can, of course, use a normal paintbrush and a pot of clean water. So it might just take you a little bit longer, but you can certainly do the same technique. Once I've built up some colour and adding some shadows around the edges, and I'm using the dark brown colour to also kind of draw in some of the lines, but then I'm blending it with the mid-tone so that it looks more like a shadow rather than a stamped line. So here I have my little bunny all done, and I did one earlier, so I cut him out, and I can just wipe off this palette and put it to the side to use another day. So there's also a little balloon in this stamp set, but I used the same technique to stamp this a couple of times, but because the second generation stamping doesn't give a really solid line, I was able to make it look more like an Easter egg. So I added some details with my distress inks to make them all a little bit different and fun. Moving over to my background now, I've used these two dies from Lawn Fawn, the large stitch rectangle die, and also this starry backdrop to cut out once again in some smooth white cardstock. And I'm going to be using an ink blending brush to create a really soft blend of colour on this rectangular panel. There are loads and loads of ink blending brushes on the market now. Now these here are makeup brushes that I bought from the pound shop, and I got them for Christmas. I thought, well, I'll buy a couple. If they don't work, it doesn't matter. They were just £1, and I was really pleased with how they turned out. The bristles are a little soft, I think. It would probably have better results if they were stiffer, a bit like a shaving brush. But they do the job. It just takes a little bit of time to build up the colour. So I'm using this new tool, the Tool-in-One from Spellbinders, to get all those little pieces out of the die. I picked that up at Creativation, and it worked really well. And before I stick my starry background on, or starry panel on top of the background, I trimmed off all 4 edges because I wanted to see more of that that inked background, seeing as I had gone to the bother of actually blending the ink on it. So now I have my little bunny and the Easter eggs laid out where I want them to be. I'm going to move over to the greeting. This Hoppy Easter greeting, I didn't even think I had an Easter greeting in my stash, but it just goes to show that sometimes they can be hiding on you. And I'm going to emboss this once again onto some smooth white cardstock, and I'm using my Versamark to stamp this. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with some blue embossing powder. This is another thing that I actually didn't know I had in my stash, but I found it and I thought it would look really cute and it would coordinate really well with the soft, subtle tones of this card. So I did prep my cardstock before I stamped it, and this embossing powder gives a really nice glassy finish, which is really sweet. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to cut this down into, I guess it's like a little book plate using this die here, but it's a little bit too long. So I'm going to run it through my Big Shot twice and try and create a shorter book plate or panel. So I'll line it up first of all to the left and then run that through my machine. And then when I have done that, I can then pop the book plate or the die cut back in its place, back in its home, and slide the die along. And the edges of the die, the cutting edge of the die, it really does find the grooves that are already pre-cut, so it's pretty easy to just slide it along and use a little bit of washi tape to hold it in place while I run it through the Big Shot again. So instead of raising up this panel, I want it to be flush, because raising it up would create too much of a shadow and I wouldn't see any colour coming through those little stars and circles. But to add some dimension, I will use some foam pads or foam tape behind each of my elements on top here. I did have a yellow and an orange, which was fairly similar colour tones, so I made sure that they weren't next to one another. I put the blue in between, just so it was a bit more balanced on the card. Now I wanted to add some twine to the card, purely because, to be honest, I haven't used twine in a long time. So I thought I would have 3 pieces of twine, but instead of wrapping it round the card 3 times, I made sure I had enough, folded it up so that I had 3 lengths altogether, and then using the 3 lengths all as one, I threaded it through the book plate. Now this is ready to go on my card. I thought I'd add a little bit of glitter using this Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush. I kind of wish I didn't do this, because in the photos you'll see that it really saturated the elements and I lost a lot of the detail. It kind of became blurry again. So that's a lesson for me to learn, I guess. I finished off with some Nouveau drops, and I then stuck this on top of a folded note card, and voila, I have a beautiful, cute card. Thank you so much for watching this video. Here's some more videos that you may like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any of my other videos as soon as they're released. You can also leave me a like and a comment down here, and don't forget to follow me on social media @HungryHeffy. I'll see you there. Have a great day and happy crafting. Bye!